My name's Stu Barter. I'm one of the coaches down at the Penarthians rugby club, which is a small club just outside of Cardiff. I've been involved in that club for about 7 or 8 years now, undertake a variety of roles there, from managing the first team through to coaching, through to helping out as minis and juniors, chairman, and lots of other things in between. My wife and I moved to Penarth around about 9-10 years ago. My daughter was looking to play some rugby, being pushed a little bit by myself, but she was only about 3.5. Went to one of the local rugby clubs and they didn't really have much idea what was going on in terms of kids rugby, and then the club across the road, we had some friends who were there, went along to a few sessions. That was all Penarthians, and then the following season they were looking for a coach. Nobody else had volunteered, so I put my hand up. I think it was a case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and here I am 9 years later. The kids started off under 6s with 4 kids. By the end of the first season we had 40 kids coming along, so really popular. I was involved a little bit with the girls rugby, but because my daughter's involved I try and take a bit of a step away from that and a bit of a step back. Did various coaching qualifications up through to my WRU level 2, so probably one of the more qualified coaches at the club. I help out across different age groups. When I wanted to move on, it was who would take that over, and my wife Sue then got involved in the club. Now, she was a primary school teacher, so used to working with younger children and managing them, and she took over and just made it 100 times better than it was before. She was always very friendly and outgoing, and she would recruit players in, so the young kids, by providing them with an enjoyable Sunday's rugby. She'd also recruit a lot of the parents for coaching roles or admin roles, so it benefited the club. We went from something like 30 to 40 kids in the first year. I think we're around 250, 300 kids now. She fell ill at the end of September last year, and died shortly afterwards of breast cancer, middle of October last year. So it all happened very quickly. It's all been very, very hard. As you can imagine, losing a wife, a mother, and then having to deal with all the bits and pieces afterwards that everybody has to deal with when somebody passes. And it's been a big loss to us as a family, obviously, and to the community, to the club. She was involved in the rugby side. She was a piano tutor to loads of children locally as well, so she did lots of things in the community outside of rugby. So it has been very, very hard. In Cardiff we've got a hospital called Velindre Cancer Centre. It's a specialist cancer facility, and it's where Sue unfortunately passed away. The care that they give to people in the position where they're either being treated for cancer or have a life-limited condition and terminal cancer is just unbelievable. Unfortunately, it doesn't get funded very well. So I've set up a sort of Just Giving page, and we're doing a lot of fundraising through the next sort of 12 to 18 months and maybe a little bit longer, looking to raise money for them. Just finished dry January, which was harder than I imagined. It was a little bit easier than when Sue wasn't around, because she would be always one trying to buy me a pint during January, so we've got through that. This month I'm trying to walk 100 miles in a month, and then towards the end of the year we've got Cardiff half marathon, and there's myself and quite a few other guys from the club are going to be involved in doing that, and there's lots of other people doing lots of things like tea mornings. There's going to hopefully be some sort of charity ball as we go through the year, so looking to raise about £50,000. We're doing a few bits and pieces. It'd just be nice to give them a big check at the end of the year in Sue's memory, really. I think we've made it a much more open place. I think I said earlier that sometimes going into a new rugby club can be quite daunting. We've always been about the one club approach, myself and Sue, trying to make sure that the players from our senior side were involved in the minis and juniors, because the kids see a player that comes down who plays for the club normally, and it doesn't matter whether it's George North or Rhys Lakin, who's our first team captain, they admire them as much. It's just a rugby player, and they're sort of a little bit awestruck, really. So I think that's one thing that we've concentrated on, and it's actually worked really well. And we've actually seen more of the players now when they're having their own children, bringing them back into the club. So it's that new generation coming through, and it's making sure that hopefully we've got a club in another 10, 20, 30, 50 years time, whatever it may be. Initially it's been really tough. I mean, Sue was made the chair of our minis and junior section in August/September of last year, and then with her passing, it's something I was looking to take over, and I did briefly, but it was just too much to sort of focus on with everything else that needed to be sorted out at home. So in terms of my roles as first team manager and minis and juniors chair, I've taken a little bit of a step back from those at the time, for the time being, just to make sure that my daughter is happy and has everything that she needs. Make sure the house is paid for and all those, you know, all the day-to-day stuff that we sort of take for granted when there's two people doing the job. Life as a single parent is a lot more challenging than I thought it would be. But eventually, my aim is to get back more involved. I've just retained my role as under-11s coach at the moment. And I'm sort of still involved in a lot of the minis and juniors stuff. Going forward, I'd love to get more back involved with the first team, the women's, and say the committee duties that I used to do as well. The support we've had from the club has been fantastic, from the moment that she was ill through to when she unfortunately passed away. Just everybody there, it's been like an extended family really, and we always said it was like a bit of a home from home for us. We would say we're there a lot, and a lot of people know us through that. So just in terms of people, they did a bit of a fundraiser for us to make sure we had some money in the interim. They held various minute silences through the minis and junior sections, right the way through to the seniors. A lot of other clubs in the area did the same. And there was a game shortly after Sue died where there was a guard of honour, and there were about 400 or 500 kids and their families had come down to pay their respects to Sue. And that's where we held Sue's wake as well. And that was all put on by the club for us. Sue was always the person who looked after everybody. She cared for me, she cared for my daughter, and she would always be the one that listened to other people's problems and helped them deal with it. And in amongst that, she seemed to forget about looking after herself. Now, she went into hospital at the end of September, and unfortunately she died just over 2 weeks later from a quite aggressive cancer. Unfortunately, now looking back at things, she'd lived with that cancer and been aware of that cancer for some time, and for whatever reason didn't say anything. I can draw conclusions from it, and it'll probably be something that I'll never be able to get straight in my own mind. People say that you get into a situation where you don't feel like you can deal with it, and you know what's going to happen, you know what the end result is, so you just put it off and put it off. I would counter that by saying, when you've lost somebody and they're not here anymore, that's the most awful feeling you'll ever encompass. Having to live without my wife, my best friend around, and my daughter having now to grow up without a mother around, there's never anything going to replace that. So would she have been cured if she dealt with it sooner? Maybe, maybe not, but at least we'd have had that opportunity. So if you are concerned, get it checked and deal with it rather than waiting until another time or thinking about other people deal with it, and that's the best thing you can do. She was a fighter. And I'm just amazed that she lived with it for so long. And you look back at things and you can say, oh, you can point to things and say, okay, yeah, that makes sense now, or that makes sense now. But none of it gives you any comfort now. She's not here. Yeah, she'd been complaining she was ill, like going into sort of September. She was a school teacher, and they had an inspection coming up in September. She said she was feeling breathless and anxious about that. That was what she was using, I think, as her cover. So she had the school inspection, and that went through. They flew through their inspection, had really good reports through from the inspectors. Her teaching was exemplary and so on. And then she got sent home from work because she looked unwell, and asked her to go to the doctor, and she said she'd booked an appointment and she hadn't, and there's a lot of denial going on there. So basically her mother dragged her to the doctors, and then they phoned later that day. So I think she went in on a Thursday night and was assessed, sent home on a Friday, and then rushed back in on a Saturday, and she didn't come home. Yeah, 28th of September I think she went in, and she passed on the 16th of October. I noticed she had a lump, and I'd spoken to her maybe 12 to 18 months ago. I forget the exact date, but it was, yeah, certainly a time ago, and I'd asked her to go to the doctors and get it sorted, and she told me she'd been to the GP, and I don't think she ever went. And then various physical signs then later that indicate that she'd had it for a while. I won't go into details, but yeah, there were things that she was hiding. So yeah, she did know. You do sort of think, how come she didn't do it? But as I said earlier, she's the one who always looked after everybody else. She just wanted to protect us from whatever was going on. Seemed a little bit misguided now, because we got to deal with life without her here, and whatever chance we would have had to sort of get that sorted, then that was gone. because we started dealing with it too late, and even at the end she was still in denial that it was all happening when she was in the hospital. Yeah, it's a whole new world now, having to organise all these sort of things, because my daughter does rugby, she does ice skating, she does singing and drama and all these other activities, making sure they're paid for first and foremost, and then she's taken to them, and get a lot of support from family and friends, which is brilliant. But I'd much rather Sue was still doing that. But yeah, so we are where we are. One of the things, last thing she said, it is what it is. What will be, what will be. You may think now that you're protecting your loved ones, and you are now in that short term, but in the long term, nothing will ever replace you. You'll always have a special role to fulfill. Sorry. Yeah, just deal with it. Yes, it'll be hard to deal with, but you'll be dealing with it with people who love you, and hopefully you'll still be here in a few years' time.